What's good, YouTube, man? It's Gary, which is on Fan TV. Back at you with the video. Like the content of this video, go smash that like button. At the content of this channel, go and subscribe, man. Look, so today I want to do is I want to review the mock draft roundup article that the Ravens produce pretty much every Thursday leading up to the NFL draft. We are officially 3 weeks away from the first round of the NFL draft taking place. So I thought it was a perfect time. Let's see who the columnists, people who get paid to write about the NFL. Who do they have the Ravens selecting? Who do they have filling, some needs on the roster for the Ravens, right? So I'll give my opinion on some of the players. Haven't really talked about any draft prospects so far this season. So yeah, let's just get right into it, right? I'll talk about who they got listed and get my thoughts on the guys they got listed, right? We'll just keep it like that. All right. Now, first guy list I see is Nick Emawari, safety from South Carolina. Now, my thing with Nick Emawari is this, right? Explosive player, fast player. To me, he's like a player that's better in the box, right? So while him and Kyle Hamilton will be probably the most athletic duo, safety duo in the NFL, I don't know if they fit together, right? If you for me, Kyle Hamilton is best at doing all the things I said that Nick Emawari does, and Kyle Hamilton does it better, right? Kyle Hamilton had to play more deep safety out of necessity last season because the Ravens were so bad covering deep that they needed him to play back there. But Kyle Hamilton's at his best when he can be everywhere, all over the field. And with him and Nick, he's not a bad player. I just think that Kyle Hamilton and him had the same strengths, and Kyle Hamilton does it better. So why would I draft that kind of player, right? So that's my thoughts on him. Good player, but I don't think it's really a fit for the Ravens, okay? Second person is Mike Green. Mike Green, edge from Marshall. He has a lot of production, right? I think we're talking about 17 sacks on the year, 23 tackles for loss, 84 tackles overall. And the main thing with Mike Green is that he's fast, he's bendy off the edge, super quick. Now, the thing that's going to hold him back, and we'll see how the Ravens play if he was to happen to be available at 27, he has off-field allegations from two separate places, one from in college, I think one from like in high school, right? So, allegations I believe of like a sexual assault kind of nature, right? So, Ravens usually send the hands off of those kind of guys. Now, nothing has been proved or anything like that, so I don't know. But that's the kind of allegation that's out there, right? So, for the Ravens, they usually hands off those kind of guys, right? But Mike Green is a very, very talented edge rusher, right? All right, next guy they got listed here, Josh Simmons, right? Josh Simmons is an exciting offensive line prospect from Ohio State. Many thought that he might be the best offensive tackle in the class if he doesn't tear his ACL, right? So he tears his ACL, that gives Donovan Jackson a boost, right? Donovan Jackson goes from guard to offensive tackle. He's kind of boosted his draft stock with that. But speaking of Josh Simmons, right, a guy that, like I said, people could have thought while he was playing this year could have been offensive tackle one this year in this year's draft. Tears his ACL, but apparently he's been doing a lot of pre-draft work, right? He's showing teams that he is pretty much getting closer to back to health, right? I don't know how long he'll be out if he was drafted. So my main question for him, the Ravens would to draft a guy like this is, well, one, how much does he play his rookie year just because of the injury? And two, what does it look like as far as he's obviously not going to be playing tackle year one. So does he just sit behind Stanley, learn for a couple years, or does he get out there at some point in the season and he's competing to be a starting guard? Which is no problem for me. Like, you could play guard for a little bit and then say, Stanley moves on. Boom, you're the replacement left tackle. You already been kind of groomed for the role, right? So that will be interesting to me, but I don't know how the Ravens are going to play. Listen, the Ravens aren't afraid to draft somebody off an injury. We've seen it with David Ajabo, right? Now, has that been the great example of it working out? Not really. But the Ravens aren't afraid to do it, okay? Now, the next two players on this list are kind of two of my, I would say, favorite guys that I would like to see if, they are available, the Ravens get these kind of players. Malachi Starks, Georgia safety, right? The reason I really like Malachi Starks is that he's an instinctive safety, and he's more of a free safety, right? So he doesn't really clash with Kyle Hamilton. He has good ball skills. He came from a great program that has produced a lot of great defenders. We see what the Eagles seem to pick up a Georgia defensive player every year, and it works out, right? So with Malachi Starks, he fills a need for the Ravens. To me, safety isn't the biggest need on the defense or really on the team overall. But I wouldn't be mad if they drafted Malachi Starks just because I believe that he's a dynamic player and he's a player that the Ravens really could fit of what they have. And at this on the board at 27, he really could be the best player available. So I don't really have a problem with drafting Malachi Starks at this position. His testing scores were okay, right? But what really was impressive to me was when he did all of the combine drills and even just at his pro day, his miles per hour were very, very high. So when we're talking about doing actual football things, he did it at full speed and he did it at top speed, and he looked very, very fluid doing it. So I like Malachi Starks. I wouldn't mind that move at all if they even ended up drafting him. Now, the other guy that I think is probably my, just based off of what the Ravens need, how he can fit right in, um, and who's going to be available at that point in time realistically. I think this is probably my number one guy, right? So this is Donovan Izaraku, edge from Boston College. Crazy production, right? 16 and a half sacks, 21 tackles for loss. And we're talking about a pass rush plan too. This is not just speed. This is not just one thing. He can do multiple. He has multiple ways of beating offensive linemen already, right? So you get that guy who already has a pass rush plan, already has moves. You get him with Chuck Smith, who can develop those moves even more. This is my number one guy for the Ravens, right? Edge is a place of need that they need to get more talented, and this guy is extremely talented. He has the production, and he's a good athlete, right? He kind of checks all the boxes for me for what I'm looking for what the Ravens need to be targeted in the edge rusher, right? So Donovan Ezewaku from, I'm probably butchering his last name, so I apologize for that. But from, I'm just gonna call him Easy, from Boston College. That's my number one guy, right? So if he's on the board, run up the card. Honestly, that's really how I feel about him. All right. Now the last couple players here: Walter Nolan, interior defensive lineman from Ole Miss, big guy, stout run defender, still developing the pass rush plan. I think he's a good player, right? So you get somebody who has, I think he had like a 90 plus run grade from PFF. And then you would get him with Chuck Smith, who can develop some of those inside pass moves, right? Pass rush moves. And now you have a trio on the inside of Matabike, Travis Jones, and Walter Nolan. I can get behind that, right? I can rock with that, right? Even Broderick Washington throwing in there as well, right? That's not bad. That's really good, right? So I don't mind that. If he's the best player on the board, I can see the Ravens trading back. I'm not super excited about him as a player, but he's another guy that I wouldn't mind, right? All right. Tyler Booker. Tyler Booker, he's a guard, Alabama, so big time program. So that's obviously something that the Ravens look at. The Ravens, especially Eric Cox, that's drafted from a lot of big time schools. We know that. But his RAS scores, his relative athletic scores were very low, but he's a physical, dominant football player, right? He's tough, physical, and nasty. That's what you want from an interior offensive lineman, right? He's the type of guy that he's going to finish. He's not finished his block until you're on the ground, right? So I like that in old linemen, especially in your guard play where you get very, very, physical in the trenches, right? Very, very physical in the middle of the pack. I like that, right? The athletic scores, I'm not too much concerned about it for the position he plays, but you would like to see a better athlete there. But if he is there and available, I wouldn't mind the Ravens drafting him at all. I actually do like the Tyler Booker pick because he is something that the Ravens need, and his mentality, his makeup, and the school he came from are all big pluses to me, right? So I like Tyler Booker's draft pick. I could be wrong, but I think he's the offensive lineman who says like he gets enjoyment from taking the love of the game away from defenders. I believe that's him. And if that's him, that's my kind of offensive lineman all day long, right? All right, last two guys here. So second to last guy here is James Pierce, edge from Tennessee. Obviously, the big trend here is you've seen a lot of edge prospects. People see what the Ravens need. All right, anyway, but James Pierce, edge from Tennessee. Now, James Pierce is fast. He's athletic. His player comp is Odafe. I've seen that a couple of times. 4.47 40, so very, very fast, very, very quick. He's a guy that before this season started, he had number one pick aspirations, right? His name, if you look at some of these preseason mock drafts, and obviously those preseason mock drafts are nothing like it is at the end of the season because everything changes. But he was a guy that was highly considered, right? I think he only had 7.5 sacks this year, which is not bad, but not a kind of production that people thought he was going to have. And there's been kind of questions about his attitude, right? I've seen that, but draft season, everybody's attitude gets questioned in some way or the other, right? We hear this all the time, right? But anyway, he's kind of falling down draft boards a little bit. He's a very, very athletic guy. Probably not the most refined pass rusher, but the tools are there. And yes, his pro comp is Odafe Owe, but he has more production than Odafe Owe had coming out of college. So it is what it is with that. But I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind. I know I've said that a lot about guys I wouldn't mind, but James Pierce would be an interesting pick just because of what people thought he was before the season and where he's at now. You could be hitting on somebody that maybe the league slept on that could have high upside, right? All right. Last guy here, a guy that I mean, honestly, I don't think will be there, but this mock draft has Shamar Stewart, defensive lineman, Texas A&M, going to the Ravens, right? Now, Shamar Stewart is maybe the biggest athletic freak in this draft, or one of them, right? Like 6'5", 260 plus pounds. He had a relative athletic score, the RAS scores. His was like a perfect 10 or really high nines. Okay. Like I said, freak athlete, right? But with him, no production in college. 1.5 sacks last year. Just really no production, but very, very disruptive and a lot of pressures, right? A lot of pressures, and the defense he was on was okay, right? So he's the main guy people focused on, so they were okay. All right, so I like Shamar Stewart. I don't think he's going to be here just because of the upside of his athleticism. I see a team taking him before 27, right? Unless some stories come out about off the field issues and allegations or whatever, I don't really see him dropping to 27, right? Um, Now Ravens fans are going to see this guy, see his statistical profile, and be like, "Oh my goodness, we're drafting another Odafe Owe." But people need to stop saying that. Okay, Odafe Owe was a good draft pick. Got 10 sacks last year. He's only really elevating and ascending, in my opinion. So if you get a guy that has the physical tools, right? That has a disruption in the backfield. And like I said, I like Chuck Smith a lot. He's, I think, a pass rush guru. That's what he's labeled as, and I think he's proven that to be the case. So you get a guy like Chuck Smith to work with Shamar Stewart, you can only go up from there. Right? That's honestly how I feel about it, right? So I'm fine with that, really. All right. So if I look at these names on this mock draft roundup, like I said, for me, Donovan, easy, from Boston College is number one. Malachi Starks from the Georgia safety is number two. And probably Tyler Booker, right? The guard from Alabama. That's probably my top three guys. Just looking at this mock draft roundup, who's available right here that I would love to see the Ravens take if it comes to that. On draft night, right? So if those three guys on the board, that's kind of the order I would take those guys in, right? That's just my opinion on it. I'm obviously giving you your opinion on it. Who are some prospects you like? It doesn't even have to be first round. It could be later on in the draft. For some players between the Ravens should definitely target, right? Leave all those comments down below. Reply to all comments, man. But it's Gabriel to the Fan TV. I'm out.